Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Generational Legacy Podcast. We are excited to have you here today because we're going to be talking about something that everybody should be thinking about right now, and that is politics.
Yes.
Yes.
So it's going to be an episode where you're going to, we're going to give you some things to take away and to think about, but ultimately each one of us from the U.S. right now, we're getting ready to make a big decision about the country. And so we want you to have some insight that the way we think about it, and maybe it'll help with some of your decision making. So welcome, everybody.
Yes, welcome. Well, I think it is very important for every citizen of this wonderful country to cast a vote for a candidate that you think would be best to serve our country.
Yep, we have Gabe, this is your first time voting.
Yeah, this is my first time voting for a president.
Right.
Because if I remember correctly, I turned 18 in 2021.
Right.
So I missed.
So
I
you
couldn't
missed that,
vote
yes.
on the 2020 presidential election. So this is my first election to vote for the president. I just registered to vote this summer for the first time.
Right.
So
Right. Now you're a real grown up.
yes.
You registered to vote. So it's important for us to, as families, be on board with
Yes.
participating in our part to vote, because we are making decisions that affect an entire country.
Right.
And sometimes in the church environment, I don't know where it came from, but there's some thought that you shouldn't mix the church and politics. Well, I mean, if you don't do that, then
Yeah.
who's left to do the politics?
Well, Jesus mixed the church and politics because he said that the government will be upon his shoulders. And it is important who holds positions of authority.
Right.
Yes.
The Bible says when the righteous rule,
The people
rejoice because the righteous are going to make good decisions that affect everybody. They're going to bring prosperity. They're going to defend the country. They're going to promote the welfare of the country. And that's important. It's very important. So I want to encourage everyone to vote, but don't just vote how you feel. Do some research.
Yeah.
Make sure that the candidate that you want to choose lines up with your values.
Well, I mean, your values need to line up with the word.
Yes.
So you could choose based on your values, but if your values don't line
Right.
up with the word, you're still going to end up choosing someone that could send a nation in despair and
Yes.
send it in a, as far as a character state of just ignoring God and going against God, and we see, Gabe, one of the things about you is you're a missionary. And the reason there's so much missionary work to do, when you really think about it, there's so much work to do in countries around the world to bring the gospel to them, because the leaders of the country
Yes.
has
Yeah.
decided that country is going to be this religion.
Yes.
And they're banning Christianity, or they ban God, the real God,
Yeah.
from being heard
Yes.
about, taught
Right.
about, or even experienced for the people.
Yeah.
And that all, again, there is politics.
Right.
And this is why so many missionaries are having to go out into the world to
Yeah.
preach a gospel to people who not only have never heard the gospel, but are being closed off from
Yeah.
from being able to hear the gospel.
Yeah.
This is why we have underground churches in countries. This is why, it's not, even in America, praying in school has become an issue.
Yeah.
All those things occurred because of the type of leadership that
Yeah.
happened through politics.
Yes.
So as we choose who we want to lead, we also have to pray protection over the process of elections.
Yes.
Yes.
Because that's another thing.
Make sure it's fair and right.
Make sure
elections.
make sure the process is not corrupted.
Yeah.
Because in the countries where leaders have been there forever and a day, it's because of a corrupt
Yes.
because of a corrupt
They
process.
force the hand of the people.
The people have no say.
Right.
And it's corruption.
Right.
You know. So what are some of the things going through your mind, Gabe, as you get ready to, vote for this election?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much everything you guys said. I'm looking to vote for a candidate who most closely aligns with the things that I feel are most important, but also I am looking to vote for a candidate who maybe has a track record of making like the living situation of the people better. Because I mean, with the two candidates that we have to choose from, they both have had the opportunity to show a track record. So it's not like you're not able to look at the track record of either. And so I'm looking for things like, was stuff more affordable under a certain person? Was stuff easier to get a hold of? Was like what was my living situation like? Even aside from value stuff like that, like yes, that's there too, but also like from a practical, from a day-to-day standpoint, like what was my life like under each administration, and how much of that was from their policies and how much of that was from what was happening in the world. But then it's also important to recognize that America affects a lot of what happens in the world. Like we were just in Africa a couple months ago, and like the people who were there were talking about how every time a president is elected and every time America does something, they feel it in their nation.
Wow.
They feel the ripple effect in their nation. So they all wish that they could vote.
Right.
Because like they all wish
Yes.
that they in Africa could vote in the American elections. And I didn't meet one person who didn't wish that. Like we talked to several people, and regardless of who they thought was the best president, they all said the same thing. They all said that whatever happens in the U.S. affects our country greatly.
Yes.
Because it like how the U.S. is doing from an economic standpoint oftentimes really affects how the rest of the world is from an economic standpoint.
Right.
Because so many companies that are based in the U.S. do so much volume around the world that it really affects the whole thing. And all the countries are a lot more interconnected than we all want to admit.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
I'm looking for all those things. I'm looking for somebody who not only values the world, but also puts America first, and also like somebody who thinks of the people in America as much as they think of the people in the rest of the world. Because if there's an imbalance, then I think there's something wrong.
Right.
Yeah, as voters, we have to look and we have to listen. We have to listen to what candidates say, because there are some candidates that will say anything to get elected.
Which is lying.
Exactly. And we as a family, one of the things that we value greatly is truth. We don't tolerate lying. We don't lie ourselves. And, lying is a big thing. The protection of life is another big thing. And the willingness to fight for this country. We look for people that will defend this country, and because those things are important to us, and we follow these things. We're not blind to what's going on.
I mean, personally, I want somebody who could fight and win.
Exactly.
I want somebody that could walk in a room and everybody's scared they're there.
Yes.
That's what I want. And see, people see that and they get scared and they think that the person's going to attack them.
Yeah.
When in fact, you want somebody like that to attack the enemy, not somebody that's
Exactly.
sweet talking you and talking a bunch of lies and saying things back and forth that aren't true and just making up stories. So you have to look behind the scenes, and you will have to decide, for me personally, you decide who can walk into a room and make the enemy of our country tremble.
Yeah.
Or at least get a little bit scared of what decision they're going to make. You see, this isn't a camaraderie session. This is you want to kill us, we're going to make sure you don't. That kind of thing. And so that's what you want in a leader. When it comes down to it, when all the values, if the values aren't lining up, if they're, and this is the other thing, we're not electing a pastor.
Right.
Yes.
We're not electing a church leader. Christians, we're electing a president of a country.
Yes.
And we need to have somebody that could defend the country and actually loves the country and will give Christianity the platform that it needs to have in order for us to still be considered a God-fearing country. You know, and all those things line up. And those are things that we have to choose from. And I think it's pretty simple, the choice to be made. But again, as a citizen, which thank God I am a citizen of the United States through the natural way, normal way of doing it. As a citizen, we each get one vote to say what our place is, and we should take the vote. If you don't take the vote, then you're deciding for whatever happens.
I mean, I think somebody who has the opportunity to vote but has no say.
No say.
And what happened
no
to the country.
say.
And they can't complain.
Yeah, they can't complain and they have no say because you didn't take your chance to express your view.
Yeah. Again, that's somebody not wanting to take responsibility.
And,
correct.
You know, we are the United States of America, and we need to protect our sovereignty as a nation. You know, having borders are very important. You know, you brought it up earlier. You are a legal immigrant.
Yes.
You
went through the process. You came from another country, and I was there the day that you became a citizen.
And here's a funny thing. I was already in the country quite a few years before I became a citizen. And the reason I decided to be a citizen, honestly, because back the time when I did this, there was no, I didn't understand the value of citizenship, first of all, but also there was no urgency. Like, we had a green card. I had a green card. I was like, oh yeah. But the price of the citizenship kept going up. And I went, you know, I better do this before the price keeps going, you know. And that's why I did. So it turned out that I had already been married to Doug when I came back to Pennsylvania after we had gotten married and we moved back here. And I remember driving in the car. I was driving so he could read to me the book I was supposed to study. I was reviewing it as, you know, we were going.
I was quizzing her on the way to her interview.
Yeah, but it was funny because I know a lot of people thought that maybe when I married Doug, that's when I was able to apply for my citizenship. And that's one of the reasons why, you know, I'm in America. But I remember laughing, thinking, wow, it's a good thing I went ahead and did it because I didn't really understand, you know, and at the time, I mean, I wasn't far into the age of being able to vote anyway. So when we came, I was younger. So, you know, I wouldn't have been able to vote as it is. So, but I'm glad that I'm a citizen of the United States, and thank God I did it then so that I don't have to go behind people now that are taking spots that should be given to people who came legally. But all these things are happening behind the scenes. Nobody wants to talk about them. There are different levels. We just found out through a friend that had applied for a certain type of visa. Those visas are now being taken away from people who actually applied properly. They already applied, and it's being handed down to allotments to people who came in illegally. And see, all these things are happening behind the scenes, but nobody's talking about it.
Yeah, I'm not going to vote for someone who just allows anyone to come into the country without being vetted, without going through the right process, because it's wrong.
Yeah, there's so many things that we had to do and paperwork and questions we had to answer, medical things we had to get done, all this stuff just, you know, to be able to come and get a green card, much less citizenship. So all these, there's a process, and it's a good process. America already has a great process. So when somebody wants to ruin something, they confuse a process when they want to ruin it. And that's what's happening with who's leading today and who is trying to lead again. And you just have to be smart about it.
Yes. And you have to be rooted and grounded in the truth to be able to discern lies. I mean, when you know the truth, you can tell when someone is not being truthful.
Right.
You know, I mean, the Bible talked about lying spirits that would come and influence someone to get a leader to do something that they shouldn't do.
Yeah.
And in the story of Jehoshaphat, it talks about that in 2 Chronicles, 18 to 20 or some different parts in there. But, you know, I love this country, and I am privileged to be, in our country, we are privileged to be able to cast a vote for our leaders. We're a republic, And that's a right that we need to value and we need to exercise when we have the opportunity to.
Yeah.
So I would encourage you, if you don't vote, you should.
Yes, you should.
Yeah.
It's
because
important.
it's your decision. And what we do
Yes.
on earth is recorded in heaven, by the way.
Absolutely.
So, whatever record you want heaven to show for you, voted and who you voted for and why you voted, all gets recorded.
Yes.
I was going to ask you too, Gabe, have you heard any of your peers talk about the election at all? Like, what's their take on it?
I mean, it's interesting because a lot of the consensus comes down to not just policies, but age of politicians. And I mean, I kind of agree. We see a trend in all of politics. Everyone is like very old, very, very old. And again, not saying that if you're old, it's not good to run for politics. But again, like there's this idea where, a lot of the older generation has a very certain way of doing things, and sometimes there's not always that innovation happening, or there's not any change happening because this is the way it's always been done. But that's a common theme among the people my age. We're like, and we're not just craving for somebody who's not like, we're not craving for somebody our age to run, right? But we're like, okay, it'd be cool if in politics as a whole there was some representation of another generation. Because, it's one thing to have wisdom with your years, but then I feel like there's also like, you're so old that maybe you're not fit to really be in office anymore.
So
not just for president, but for everything.
Right. So what's the solution? What are they coming up as a solution? What do they think? I mean, like, which one of your peers feel called to politics that maybe they might not be answering? Do you?
Yeah, I mean, well, that's a really good question. The thing is, like, we're not even talking about like someone in their 20s or 30s even. Like, we're even saying like 50s, 60s. Like,
But like it has to start now though. Like,
right,
you know what I'm saying? Because the
and
future
there's
is coming.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, there's a whole generation of
Yes.
people nowadays who are like my age, who are like really starting to get into politics. But again, to even be qualified
Yes.
to run for that, we still have to wait 10, 15 years
Yeah.
for some of these people to be able to be qualified.
Right.
So our thing is like, in the now, there are people who are not of our age group, but the one like before us that are probably being called to politics, but aren't
answering.
answering that call. So I mean, again, to bring this back to a biblical standpoint, your no affects everyone, not just you.
Right.
Like, if you understand that if God's calling you to do something, your no affects way more than just you. And it affects way more than even your family. It affects, like, imagine if Noah was like, no, I'm not going to build a boat. There was no one else qualified.
Right. Nobody else was
there
qualified.
was literally no, like,
Yeah.
it's not like it could have just passed to somebody else.
Right.
There was nobody
Yeah.
else who was qualified to build the boat. And if Noah hadn't built the boat, then Jesus couldn't have come onto the earth. So like, you have to understand like what we say yes to now. So again, this goes back to politics. Like, if God's calling you to go into that office, into that position, like, just say yes, and God will figure the rest out. But but there's a big gap in just righteous politicians.
Yes.
Who uphold the things of God and uphold the morals of God.
I heard from a political group here in Pennsylvania, and I was at a luncheon, and they said when a politician gets elected to an office, they are exposed to many temptations immediately. And they, if you don't have a strong character going in, you're likely to get trapped by these things that they're offered
By the special interest groups.
Yeah.
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 Everybody wants the power of the position.
Yeah.
They want that position to influence things because that positions of power, they make decisions that affect different areas. And so we see a lot of money being raised and spent on things, but it's our duty to get involved in this system. We should not be afraid to get involved in politics.
Right. And that's the thing.
Yeah.
The church, the church and politics separation thing has come in. That's a plan of the devil. That is not of God. God didn't say the church and politics should not mix. There's nowhere in the Bible where God says, oh, if you are a shepherd, you cannot, or none of the sheep are allowed to be president of a country. That's ridiculous. So as a matter of fact, because God, his plan was that all would come to salvation. So then if everybody came to salvation, somebody's going to be the president somewhere. You understand? So we have to get that out of our thinking and start supporting the people in our groups, in our Christian environment, in our Christian culture where we are. If they're called to politics, we help them get to the places they need to go and govern so that we can have freedom of religion for real, and not the Christians not being able to go all the way. I mean, if freedom of religion was really happening, we could pray in schools without a problem. That's just the bottom line. But right now, it says it's supposed to be that way in America, but it's not.
Right.
So all these things matter when it comes to politics, and these are things we should think about. These are things we should consider. But the first thing we got to do right now, that's coming up in less than a month, maybe less than 2 weeks, is
like
that 36
days.
Well, not from the time of this airing of this podcast. It's going to be a couple days. Yeah, it's going to be a couple of days from the airing of this podcast. But we need to get out there and cast your votes for it to be recorded in heaven what you have done.
And if you're a believer, actually ask God and pray. The Bible says that we need to pray for those in authority. And we do need to pray for this nation. We are at a verge where the United States could be completely different from what we were founded on. I mean, this is how important
we got to get on it.
This moment in time is. It's very important. And you have to be able to listen to a person's policies. You can't just go by the words they say. You have to listen closely. You have to look between the lines.
Their life story is not enough.
And, you're going to see a difference. You're going to see people that just love power or people that love this nation. There's a very distinct difference. I mean, we know who we are for. And we know that, our country can be great. And we're excited.
So listen, as we go, we're going to tell you, let's make America great again. God bless you guys. Have a good
great
one.
and wonderful day.
Bye-bye.